Charlotte thought she had it all: a tech billionaire husband, a baby on the way, and a penthouse in Austin. But at 2 a.m., one hidden phone changed everything. On it, messages that exposed Derek's affair with a 24-year-old influencer. That betrayal was just the tip of the iceberg. What she uncovered next pulled her into a world of fraud, organized crime, and a plot that put her and her unborn child in mortal danger. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's the rise of a woman who turned heartbreak into the ultimate fight for survival. Stay tuned. The steady beep of hospital monitors filled the sterile room as Charlotte Hayes lay motionless in the white bed, her 7-month pregnant belly rising and falling with labored breaths. Blood stained the sheets beneath her, and her lips moved in barely audible whispers. "He tried to kill us both," she breathed, her hand protective over her unborn child. "Derek, he tried to kill us both." The nurse leaned closer, concern etching her features. "Mrs. Hayes, you need to rest. The police will want to speak with you when you're stronger." But Charlotte's mind wasn't in that sterile hospital room. It was 48 hours earlier, in the gleaming marble kitchen of her Austin mansion, where her perfect life had been nothing but an elaborate lie. 48 hours earlier, Charlotte Sterling had woken up in silk sheets worth more than most people's cars, in a bedroom overlooking the hills of West Austin. Her husband Derek was already gone, as usual, leaving behind only the faint scent of his expensive cologne and a coffee mug with lipstick stains that definitely weren't hers. At 29, Charlotte had everything a woman was supposed to want: the mansion, the luxury cars, the husband who graced magazine covers as Austin's most eligible tech mogul. Derek Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, was preparing for the biggest IPO in Texas history. The media called them the perfect power couple. Charlotte had been Derek's secret weapon, the brilliant marketing executive who'd left her own Fortune 500 career to manage his public image. She crafted every press release, orchestrated every interview, made sure Derek appeared as the innovative genius Austin believed him to be. But as she stood in her designer kitchen that morning, her pregnant belly straining against her silk robe, something felt wrong. Derek's behavior had grown stranger by the week. The mysterious late-night calls he claimed were Tokyo market updates, the sudden business trips that couldn't be verified, the way he flinched when she touched him. Charlotte poured herself orange juice with hands that trembled slightly. Maybe it was just pregnancy hormones making her paranoid. Derek had seemed genuinely excited about the baby in the beginning. He'd even started renovating the nursery himself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Parker, her divorce attorney friend from college. "Coffee today, haven't seen you in weeks." Charlotte almost declined. Derek didn't like her spending time with Jessica, claiming lawyers made him nervous. But something made her type back. 2 o'clock at Cafe Central. She spent the morning reviewing Derek's upcoming television interview, crafting talking points about his vision for American technology independence. Sterling Dynamics was positioning itself as the patriotic alternative to foreign tech giants. It was brilliant marketing, and Charlotte had developed every angle. At noon, Derek's phone rang on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten it while rushing to his meeting with potential investors. Charlotte glanced at the screen and froze. The caller ID read Tokyo Markets, but the number was local, Austin area code. Charlotte stared at Derek's phone as it continued ringing. Tokyo Markets? At noon on a Tuesday, when it would be 2 a.m. in Japan. Her marketing mind kicked into overdrive, the same analytical thinking that had made her one of the youngest executives in her previous company. Derek always claimed his late-night calls were urgent Asian market discussions, but this call was coming from Austin. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Same number, same false label. Charlotte's hands shook as she realized what this meant. Every late night, every mysterious business trip, every time Derek had made her feel crazy for questioning his behavior, he'd been lying. She grabbed her car keys and drove to Derek's office building, her mind racing. The parking garage held Derek's Tesla, exactly where it should be. But Charlotte had remembered something. Derek always kept a backup phone in his car for emergencies, using the spare key she'd never needed before. Charlotte searched the Tesla's interior. In the center console, hidden beneath insurance papers, she found it, a second iPhone with no lock screen password. Her heart hammered as she scrolled through the messages. The contact list was small but devastating. Tokyo Markets was actually someone named Amber Collins, and the messages between them made Charlotte's blood turn to ice. Can't wait to see you tonight. Baby, your wife's still buying the business trip story. She's getting suspicious. Keep playing the sweet, pregnant housewife. Won't be much longer. Derek, you're terrible. What if she finds out about the penthouse? She won't. Charlie's too busy playing the perfect wife to notice I'm never actually home. Charlotte scrolled further back, finding photos that made her stomach lurch. Derek and a young blonde woman in intimate poses, clearly taken in a luxury apartment she'd never seen. The timestamps showed they'd been together for months, but the messages that truly destroyed her were Derek's descriptions of their marriage. Had to pretend to be interested in baby names today. God, she's getting huge. The psycho pregnant whale I'm stuck with for now. Thank God this will all be over soon. Charlie actually thinks I'm excited about being a father. She has no idea what's coming. Charlotte dropped the phone, her hands flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. 7 months pregnant. She'd been planning nurseries and picking names while Derek mocked her body and counted down the days until their marriage was over. She forced herself to read more, screenshotting everything as evidence. Amber Collins appeared to be a lifestyle influencer, 24 years old, with hundreds of thousands of followers. Her Instagram showed a glamorous Austin life funded by mysterious means. The messages revealed Derek had been setting up bank accounts Amber could access. He'd purchased the penthouse apartment under an LLC that didn't include Charlotte's name. He'd even started moving money offshore. But why wait if Derek wanted a divorce? Why the elaborate deception? Charlotte found her answer in Derek's messages from the previous week. Insurance policy came through. $50 million if anything happens to Charlie. Her blood went cold. Insurance policy. She'd never signed paperwork for a $50 million life insurance policy. Perfect timing with the IPO. Tragic accident. Grieving widower. Sympathy from investors. You're brilliant, babe. No one will suspect anything when the pregnant wife has an accident. Charlotte sat in the Tesla, reading plans for her own murder while her unborn child kicked inside her. Derek and Amber weren't just having an affair. They were planning to kill her and steal everything she'd helped Derek build. Charlotte drove home in a daze, Derek's phone burning in her purse like evidence of her own death sentence. The Austin skyline blurred through tears she hadn't realized were falling. 7 months pregnant. She felt the baby moving restlessly, as if sensing her distress. She had to think strategically. Derek was a master manipulator, but Charlotte had spent years in corporate boardrooms. She knew how to present evidence and corner opponents. This would be no different than negotiating a hostile takeover. Derek arrived home at 6:30, his usual time. Charlotte had spent hours preparing, printing screenshots and organizing evidence on the kitchen island like a presentation deck. She wore her best maternity dress and had done her makeup carefully. If this was war, she'd look like the competent executive she'd always been. "Hey, beautiful," Derek said, kissing her forehead with practiced affection. "How are my girls doing?" He'd started calling the baby his girl after the ultrasound, though Charlotte suspected it was pure performance. "We need to talk," Charlotte said calmly, gesturing to the evidence spread across the marble countertop. Derek's confident smile faltered as he saw his phone and the printed messages. For just a moment, Charlotte saw real fear flash across his features. Then his expression shifted to something she'd never seen before: cold calculation. "Charlie, what are you doing with my phone?" "Reading about Tokyo markets," Charlotte replied evenly. "Interesting how Amber Collins has such detailed knowledge of Asian trading patterns." Derek picked up his phone, scrolling through the messages Charlotte had accessed. His face grew red, but not with shame, with anger. "You went through my private communications. That's a violation of my privacy. Charlotte, this is exactly the kind of behavior that concerns me." Charlotte blinked, stunned by his immediate deflection. "Derek, you're having an affair. You're planning to leave me and take our money. That's what concerns me. These messages are taken out of context. You're having some kind of breakdown. Charlie, the pregnancy hormones are making you paranoid and irrational." He said it with such conviction that Charlotte almost doubted what she'd read. This was Derek's superpower, making people question their own reality. "I have screenshots of everything," Charlotte said, holding up the printed evidence. "Photos of you with Amber, messages about the penthouse, discussions about moving money offshore." Derek studied the papers, his mind clearly racing. Then he did something that shook Charlotte to her core. He sat down heavily and put his head in his hands. "God, Charlie, you're right. I'm so sorry." The sudden admission caught her off guard. Derek looked up with tears in his eyes, reaching for her hands. "I've been terrible. The stress of the IPO, the pressure. I made some awful decisions, but it's over. I ended things with Amber last week." Charlotte wanted to believe him. The man she'd fallen in love with 4 years ago was still somewhere in there. "The penthouse?" she asked. "A stupid purchase." "I regret it immediately. I was going to tell you after the IPO. We can sell it. Put the money toward the baby's college fund. And the offshore accounts. Tax planning for the company sale. My accountant suggested it, but you're right, we should handle everything transparently. Together." Derek's performance was masterful. He acknowledged just enough truth to seem honest while reframing everything as misunderstandings or mistakes. Charlotte felt her resolve weakening. "What about the life insurance policy?" she asked quietly. Derek looked genuinely confused. "What life insurance policy?" Charlotte showed him the message about $50 million if anything happened to her. Derek's face went white. "Charlie, that's not about you. That's keyman insurance on me for the company. Standard procedure before going public. Look at the context again." Charlotte reread the messages, and her heart sank. The way they were worded could be interpreted either way. Derek was making her doubt her own reading comprehension. "I'm sorry," Derek continued, moving closer. "I know I've been distant and secretive, but I love you and our daughter more than anything. Let me prove it." He pulled out his phone and opened Instagram, quickly posting a photo of them from their anniversary dinner with the caption 4 years ago, "I married my best friend. Today. She reminded me why she's the strongest, smartest woman I know. Can't wait to meet our daughter together." The post went live immediately, garnering likes and heart emojis from their friends and Derek's business associates. Charlotte felt a rush of validation. Maybe she had been paranoid. Maybe the pregnancy was making her see threats where none existed. Derek held her close, and for the first time in months, Charlotte felt secure in her marriage. Charlotte woke the next morning feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Derek had been attentive and loving the night before, talking excitedly about baby names and nursery designs. Maybe the confrontation had been exactly what their marriage needed. She checked her phone over coffee and smiled at the responses to Derek's anniversary post. Their friends were commenting with heart emojis and congratulatory messages. Even her mother had called, saying she was proud of Derek for publicly acknowledging Charlotte during such a busy time. But as Charlotte scrolled through Derek's Instagram story from the previous night, her blood turned to ice. Derek had reposted his own anniversary tribute with 3 laughing, crying emojis and the caption, "When you have to manage the crazy pregnant wife." The story had been viewed by over 2,000 people, including many of Derek's business associates and investors. Charlotte's intimate moment of reconciliation had been turned into a public joke about her mental stability. Her hands shaking, Charlotte opened Instagram and searched for Amber Collins. The influencer's story from the same time period made Charlotte's humiliation complete. Amber had screenshot Derek's anniversary post with her own commentary, "When your man has to pretend his psycho wife is smart and strong. Some of y'all stay with crazy for the wrong reasons." The post had hundreds of likes and comments from Amber's followers, all mocking Charlotte's appearance and speculating about her mental health. Charlotte ran to the bathroom and threw up. Though she couldn't tell if it was morning sickness or pure devastation, Derek had orchestrated the entire reconciliation to make her look unstable. His public apology was actually a setup for public humiliation. She called Jessica, her divorce attorney friend, sobbing into the phone. "Charlie, slow down. What happened?" Jessica's voice was calm and professional. "Derek's having an affair and stealing our money, and somehow he's made me look like the crazy one. Where are you right now?" "Home. Derek left for work an hour ago." "Stay put. I'm coming over with my investigator. Don't delete anything. Don't confront Derek again, and don't post anything on social media." Jessica arrived within 30 minutes, accompanied by a serious-looking woman named Maria Santos, who specialized in financial investigations for high-net-worth divorces. Charlotte showed them everything: Derek's phone messages, the Instagram humiliation, the evidence of hidden accounts and properties. Maria's expression grew grave as she reviewed the financial information. "Mrs. Sterling, this is worse than an affair. This looks like systematic asset hiding in preparation for divorce. Or worse." "Worse how? Has your husband taken out any large life insurance policies recently?" Charlotte's heart sank. "He claims it's Keyman Insurance for the company. We need to verify that immediately, and we need to secure your assets before he moves more money offshore." Jessica was already making calls, arranging for forensic accountants and private investigators. "Charlie, I need you to understand something. Based on what you've shown me, Derek isn't just cheating. He's planning to leave you with nothing. The question is whether he's planning to wait for a divorce, or what?" Jessica and Maria exchanged glances. "Charlotte, pregnant women are statistically more likely to be murdered by their partners than die from pregnancy-related complications." The words hit Charlotte like a physical blow. Murder. They were talking about Derek murdering her, as if summoned by their conversation. Charlotte's phone rang. Derek's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer," Jessica advised. "Let it go to voicemail." But Derek didn't leave a voicemail. Instead, Charlotte received a text message that made her blood run cold. "Charlie, I've been thinking about our conversation last night. I think you need professional help for your paranoid episodes. I've scheduled an appointment with Dr. Morrison for a psychiatric evaluation. For the baby's safety." A psychiatric evaluation. Derek was going to have her declared mentally incompetent. Before Charlotte could respond, another text arrived. This one from an unknown number. "Stop stalking my boyfriend, you psycho whale. Some of us know how to keep a man satisfied." It was Amber, texting from a number Charlotte had never seen. Then Charlotte's phone exploded with notifications. Someone had found her personal Instagram account and was flooding it with comments about her being a crazy wife and pathetic housewife. Screenshots of Derek's mocking story were being shared with cruel captions about her appearance and mental state. Maria's phone buzzed with an alert from her financial monitoring software. "Mrs. Sterling, your husband just moved $500,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands 20 minutes ago." Charlotte sank into her kitchen chair, overwhelmed by the coordinated attack on her reputation, finances, and sanity. Derek wasn't just having an affair, he was systematically destroying her life with military precision. "We need to move fast," Jessica said grimly. "Before he does something we can't undo." Charlotte's world collapsed in stages over the next 24 hours, each catastrophe perfectly timed to maximize her helplessness. The first blow came at 8 a.m. when Austin police officers knocked on her door with legal papers. Derek had filed a restraining order, claiming Charlotte had threatened him and was having a severe psychological breakdown that endangered their unborn child. "Mrs. Sterling, you need to vacate the premises immediately," Officer Martinez said, his tone apologetic but firm. "You can take personal items, but you cannot return without a court hearing." Charlotte stared at the papers in disbelief. The petition claimed she'd attacked Derek with a kitchen knife, threatened to harm the baby, and was having increasingly violent paranoid episodes. Every sentence was carefully crafted to make her sound dangerous and unstable. "This is all lies," Charlotte protested, but the officers had heard that before. Jessica arrived as security guards Derek had hired were changing the locks on Charlotte's own home. They allowed her 30 minutes to pack essentials while they watched her every move. "How is this legal?" Charlotte asked, throwing clothes into a suitcase while trying not to cry. "Temporary restraining orders are easy to get if you know what to claim," Jessica explained grimly. "Derek's playing this perfectly. Wealthy husband, pregnant wife having breakdown, the system is designed to protect him, not you." Charlotte's phone had been buzzing constantly with notifications. Amber Collins had gone live on Instagram, sharing the truth about Derek's abusive marriage to thousands of viewers. The live stream showed screenshots of Charlotte's threatening messages, which were actually her attempts to confront Derek about his affair, but edited to remove context. "Derek's such a good man for trying to help his mentally ill wife," Amber told her audience. "But sometimes you have to protect yourself and your future children from dangerous people." The second catastrophe struck as Charlotte was checking into a hotel downtown. Sharp pains in her lower abdomen sent her to the emergency room, terrified she was losing the baby. At Austin General Hospital, Charlotte lay on a gurney as doctors performed ultrasounds and ran tests. The baby was fine, they assured her, but stress-induced contractions required monitoring. "We need to reach your husband," the nurse said. "He filed a restraining order against me this morning. He probably won't come." The nurse's expression shifted from sympathy to judgment. Another crazy pregnant woman with domestic drama. Charlotte tried calling Derek anyway, desperate to put aside their fight for their daughter's sake. His phone went straight to voicemail. She tried texting, begging him to at least call the hospital to check on the baby. Instead, Derek posted photos on Instagram from a luxury spa resort 2 hours outside Austin. He was getting a couple's massage with Amber, both of them glowing and relaxed while Charlotte sat alone in a hospital bed. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to prioritize your mental health and step away from toxic situations. Grateful for people who remind me what healthy love looks like." But the cruelest blow came when Charlotte tried to check out of the hospital. Her insurance had been canceled. "I'm sorry," Mrs. Sterling, but your coverage was terminated yesterday. The billing representative explained. The bill for today's emergency visit is $8,400. Charlotte's credit cards were maxed out or canceled. Derek had systematically cut off her access to money while she'd been focused on his affair. She had to call Tyler, her 16-year-old brother, to borrow money for a hotel room. The third catastrophe was waiting in her hotel room that night. Tyler had brought his laptop and was helping Charlotte organize evidence for her court hearing when his expression changed. Charlie, I need to show you something, but it's going to be bad. Tyler was a computer science prodigy, already accepted to MIT despite being 2 years younger than his classmates. He'd been quietly investigating Derek's digital footprint. I hacked Derek's email accounts and found the real plan, Tyler said, his voice shaking. Charlie, they're not just trying to divorce you or humiliate you, they're planning to kill you. On Tyler's laptop screen was an email chain between Derek and Amber spanning 6 months. But these weren't romantic messages, they were detailed plans for Charlotte's murder. Make it look like pregnancy complications or a car accident, Derek had written. With the life insurance policy and the IPO money, we'll have everything we need to disappear. Your poor grieving husband act is perfect, Amber had replied. Everyone will feel so sorry for the widower raising his daughter alone. No one will question the life insurance payout. But the most chilling discovery was the real amount of the policy, not $50 million, but $150 million. Derek had forged Charlotte's signature on multiple documents, creating an insurance fortune that would make him one of the wealthiest men in Texas. The emails revealed Derek and Amber had been planning Charlotte's death since before her pregnancy. They'd chosen their timeline carefully. 7 months pregnant was optimal for maximum sympathy and minimum suspicion. Tyler, we need to call the police, Charlotte whispered. I can't. I hacked into his accounts illegally. This evidence won't hold up in court, and Derek will have me arrested for computer crimes. Charlotte stared at the screen, reading her own death sentence. Derek hadn't just betrayed her. He'd spent months planning to murder her for money. And now she was alone, broke, and carrying his child while he systematically destroyed her credibility. But Tyler had found one more piece of information that would change everything. Charlie, Derek, and Amber aren't working alone. Look at this. The laptop screen showed financial transactions Tyler had traced through multiple shell companies. Someone else was funding Derek's operation, someone with serious money and resources. Who is it? Charlotte asked. Tyler's face was pale as he turned the laptop toward her. Mason Blackwood, the billionaire investor who's been circling Sterling Dynamics for months. He's been bankrolling everything. Charlotte's hands trembled as she stared at Tyler's laptop screen. Mason Blackwood, Austin's most eligible billionaire and Derek's supposed business rival, was funding her husband's plan to murder her. That doesn't make sense, Charlotte whispered. Mason hates Derek. He's been trying to block the IPO for months. Tyler scrolled through more hacked files, his teenage face grim with understanding that came too early. That's the cover story. Look at these financial transfers. Mason's been secretly buying Sterling Dynamics stock through shell companies. If Derek dies or gets arrested, Mason gets the company for pennies. The scope of the conspiracy became clear as Tyler unveiled more evidence. Mason had been playing both sides, publicly opposing Derek's IPO while privately funding the destruction of Derek and Charlotte both. But why kill me? Charlotte asked, though part of her already knew. Because you're the only person who really understands Sterling Dynamics' value. Without you managing the public relations and marketing strategy, the company would be worth a fraction of its current valuation. Mason needs Derek alive long enough to complete the IPO. Then he needs both of you gone. Charlotte felt the baby kick, a reminder that her daughter's life was also at stake. She had to think clearly, strategically. 3 people wanted her dead, but they were all working at cross purposes. That's when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she recognized from financial news programs. Mrs. Sterling. This is Mason Blackwood. I believe we need to talk. Charlotte's blood ran cold, but she answered, Mr. Blackwood. I've been following the unfortunate situation with your husband. I think I can help you. The audacity was breathtaking. The man funding her murder was calling to offer assistance. What kind of help? Charlotte managed. The kind that exposes Derek's financial crimes and ensures you and your daughter are protected. Meet me tomorrow at my office. Come alone. After Mason hung up, Tyler stared at his sister with panic in his eyes. Charlie, it's a trap. He's going to kill you. Maybe. But he's also making a mistake. Charlotte's mind was working now, the analytical thinking that had made her a marketing genius kicking into overdrive. Mason's call revealed something crucial. He didn't know Tyler had hacked into Derek's accounts. As far as Mason knew, Charlotte was still an innocent victim with no knowledge of the conspiracy. Tyler, I need you to keep monitoring their communications. But don't let them know you're watching. Can you do that? Tyler nodded, though his 16-year-old bravado couldn't hide his fear. The next morning, Charlotte dressed carefully for her meeting with Mason Blackwood. She wore her best maternity business suit and did her makeup to hide the exhaustion and stress. If this was a trap, she'd walk into it looking like the executive she'd once been. Mason's offices occupied the top 3 floors of Austin's newest skyscraper. Charlotte had been there once before, for a charity gala where Mason had publicly snubbed Derek while privately funding his murder plot. Charlotte, thank you for coming, Mason said, greeting her in his executive conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I know this must be a difficult time. At 38, Mason Blackwood was everything Derek pretended to be: brilliant, successful, and genuinely powerful. His venture capital firm had created 3 unicorn companies in 5 years. Forbes had profiled him as the king of Austin tech. I'll be direct, Mason continued. Derek is committing financial crimes that will destroy Sterling Dynamics and leave you with nothing. I have evidence that can put him in prison and protect your assets. Charlotte studied Mason's face as he spoke. He was handsome in the way wealthy men always seem to be, perfectly groomed, expensively dressed, radiating confidence. But Tyler's discoveries had revealed the predator beneath the polish. What kind of evidence? Charlotte asked. Mason slid a folder across the conference table. Inside were documents showing Derek's offshore accounts, forged investor statements, and embezzled funds that Charlotte hadn't even known existed. Derek's been stealing from Sterling Dynamics for 2 years, Mason explained. The IPO is essentially a fraud designed to sell worthless stock to unsuspecting investors. When this comes out, Derek will face federal charges. Charlotte pretended to study the documents with shock and gratitude. This is incredible. How did you get all this? I've been investigating Derek's business practices for months. I was going to expose him after the IPO, but your situation changes things. A pregnant woman doesn't deserve to be destroyed by her criminal husband. The performance was masterful. Mason positioned himself as Charlotte's savior while secretly orchestrating her destruction. But Charlotte had learned to recognize manipulation from her months with Derek. What do you want in return? She asked. Mason smiled, and Charlotte saw something predatory flicker behind his eyes. Derek destroyed my trust in Sterling Dynamics. When he's arrested, the company will be worthless. I want to buy it from you for fair market value and rebuild it properly. Fair market value, which would be almost nothing once Derek was exposed as a criminal. I need to think about this, Charlotte said. Of course. But Charlotte, you should know Derek's planning something soon. The longer you wait, the more danger you're in. As Charlotte left Mason's office, her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, "Emergency! Come to hotel now." She drove through Austin traffic with her heart pounding, fielding calls from Jessica about the restraining order hearing and juggling follow-up messages from Mason's assistant about next steps. Tyler was pacing in her hotel room when she arrived, his laptop showing multiple screens of code and communication intercepts. "Charlie, they moved up their timeline. Derek and Amber are planning something for tonight." Tyler had intercepted communications between Derek and Amber discussing the accident and making sure there are no witnesses. But worse than that, Tyler had discovered Mason's real plan. "Mason's been feeding information to Derek and Amber about your location, your meetings, everything. He's been tracking you through your phone and credit cards." Charlotte sank into the hotel chair, overwhelmed by the realization that Mason had played her perfectly. He'd offered to help so he could monitor her movements and ensure Derek's plan succeeded. "There's more," Tyler said quietly. "I found communications between Mason and Amber. They're not just business partners." Tyler showed Charlotte photos from Amber's private social media accounts, images of her with Mason at exclusive restaurants and private jets. Amber Collins wasn't Derek's mistress planning to inherit his fortune. She was Mason Blackwood's girlfriend, helping him destroy both Derek and Charlotte. "It's a three-way con," Charlotte whispered, understanding finally dawning. "Mason and Amber destroy Derek and me, then inherit Sterling Dynamics and the life insurance money. And they're planning to finish it tonight," Tyler said. "I intercepted a message about your hotel room number and the service elevator schedule." Charlotte stood up, her hand protective over her pregnant belly. For months, she'd been reacting to other people's plans, letting them control the narrative while she scrambled to survive. "Tyler, I need you to record everything they're doing. Every phone call, every message, every plan." "What are you going to do?" Charlotte looked out the hotel window at the Austin skyline, seeing the city where she'd built and lost everything. Derek, Amber, and Mason had underestimated her, assuming pregnancy and emotional trauma had made her helpless. They were about to learn why Charlotte Hayes had been one of the youngest Fortune 500 executives in the country. "I'm going to destroy all three of them," Charlotte said. "But first, I need to disappear." Charlotte's transformation began in the most unlikely place, the bathroom of a 24-hour diner on Austin's East Side, where she'd fled after discovering the full scope of the conspiracy against her. She stared at herself in the cracked mirror, seeing a woman she barely recognized, 7 months pregnant, exhausted, hiding in a dive diner at 2 a.m. while 3 people planned her murder. The old Charlotte would have called the police, relied on the system, trusted that truth would prevail. But the old Charlotte hadn't understood how easily powerful men could manipulate reality. Tyler found her there, his laptop bag slung over his shoulder and determination in his 16-year-old eyes. "Charlie, I've been thinking, we can't play defense anymore." "What do you mean?" "Derek, Amber, and Mason. Think they're so smart, but they're making mistakes. Big ones. We just have to be smarter." Charlotte ordered coffee and listened as Tyler outlined what he'd learned from monitoring their communications. The 3 conspirators were so confident in their plan that they'd grown careless. Derek thinks Amber loves him. Amber thinks Mason is going to marry her after you're dead. Mason thinks he can control both of them, but they're all lying to each other. Tyler showed Charlotte intercepted messages between Mason and Amber discussing how to eliminate Derek after Charlotte's murder. Meanwhile, Derek had been researching how to access Amber's social media accounts to steal her followers and influence after their marriage. They're going to betray each other anyway, Charlotte realized. We just need to accelerate the timeline. Over the next 6 hours, Charlotte and Tyler developed a plan that would have impressed the marketing executives she'd once worked alongside. Instead of trying to expose the truth through proper channels, they would use each conspirator's greed and paranoia against the others. Phase 1 began with Charlotte sending a carefully crafted message to Derek through an encrypted app Tyler had set up. Derek, I know about Mason and Amber. She's been playing both of us. Meet me at the penthouse tonight at 8. Come alone. Simultaneously, Charlotte sent a different message to Amber from a fake account Tyler had created. Derek's planning to kill you after Charlotte's accident. He told Mason you were getting too demanding. They're meeting tonight to discuss your replacement. The third message went to Mason from an anonymous tip line Tyler had discovered. Sterling Dynamics CEO Derek Sterling is planning to fake his wife's death tonight and flee to the Cayman Islands with stolen IPO money, GPS coordinates attached. Within hours, Tyler's monitoring software showed frantic communications between all three conspirators. Derek was demanding answers from Amber about Mason. Amber was confronting Mason about Derek's supposed betrayal. Mason was trying to control both of them while secretly moving up his own timeline. It's working, Tyler reported. They're all panicking and making more mistakes. But Charlotte's masterstroke came when she realized how to turn their individual plans against each other. Each conspirator thought they were the mastermind, which meant each had documented their crimes in detail. Tyler, can you access Derek's cloud storage? Already done. I've been copying everything for weeks. Derek's files contained his communications with the insurance company, his offshore banking records, and most damning of all, his detailed timeline for Charlotte's murder. But Derek had also been secretly recording his conversations with Mason, planning to use them as blackmail material. He's been recording Mason for months, Tyler said, playing audio files of Mason discussing the murder plot. Derek doesn't trust anyone. Meanwhile, Amber had been documenting her relationship with Mason through photos and videos, planning to write a tell-all book about seducing a billionaire. Her private files contained evidence of Mason's financial crimes and his plans to destroy Sterling Dynamics. And Mason? Charlotte asked. Tyler grinned. Mason's the best. He's been keeping detailed records of everything because he's obsessed with controlling every variable. Financial transfers, communications with Amber, surveillance reports on you everything. Charlotte stared at the treasure trove of evidence Tyler had accumulated. 3 criminals, each documenting their own crimes while planning to betray their partners. It was almost too perfect. Tyler, I need you to prepare packages for the FBI, the SEC, the Austin Police, and every major news outlet in Texas. Include everything: the murder plot, the financial crimes, the insurance fraud, all of it. When do we send them? Charlotte checked her watch. It was almost 8 p.m., which meant Derek was heading to the penthouse expecting to confront Amber about Mason. Amber was probably already there, armed with Mason's betrayal, and Mason would be coordinating with federal agents he thought were helping him arrest Derek. In exactly 2 hours, after they've all destroyed each other, Charlotte's phone buzzed with a message from Jessica, who had been frantically trying to reach her all day. Charlotte, where are you? The hearing for the restraining order is tomorrow morning, and I have some good news about the financial investigation. Charlotte smiled for the first time in weeks. Jessica, cancel the hearing. I won't be needing protection from Derek much longer. As Charlotte and Tyler prepared for the final phase of their plan, Charlotte felt something she hadn't experienced since discovering Derek's affair power. Not the borrowed power of being a wealthy man's wife, but the real power of being smarter than her enemies. Are you sure about this? Tyler asked as he prepared to execute their coordinated attack. Charlotte placed her hand on her pregnant belly. thinking about the daughter who would be born into a world where her mother had refused to be a victim. Tyler, they wanted to play games with a pregnant woman because they thought it would make me weak. They're about to learn that protecting my child makes me the most dangerous person in Austin. At exactly 10 p.m., Tyler pressed send on 47 different messages to law enforcement agencies, news outlets, and regulatory bodies across Texas. Within minutes, the carefully constructed world of Derek Sterling, Amber Collins, and Mason Blackwood began to collapse. The penthouse apartment Derek had purchased for his affair became the epicenter of his destruction. Charlotte and Tyler watched from a surveillance van Tyler had borrowed from his MIT hacker friends, monitoring police communications and news feeds as their plan unfolded. At 8:15 p.m., Derek arrived at the penthouse expecting to confront Amber about her relationship with Mason. Instead, he found Amber waiting with printed copies of his recorded conversations about murdering Charlotte. "You recorded me talking about killing your wife so you could blackmail Mason," Amber screamed, loud enough for Tyler's audio surveillance to pick up clearly. "You're even more pathetic than I thought." Derek's response revealed the depth of his paranoia. "Everyone's recording everyone. Amber, I know you're planning to dump me for Mason after Charlotte's dead. Did you really think I'd trust you with $150 million? Their argument escalated as each revealed what they knew about the other's betrayals. Amber admitted she'd been feeding information to Mason about Derek's business operations. Derek confessed he'd been planning to frame Amber for Charlotte's murder if the suicide plot failed, but the real fireworks started when Mason arrived. Mason had come to the penthouse believing he was coordinating Derek's arrest with federal agents. Instead, he walked into a recording studio where his two co-conspirators were documenting each other's confessions. "What the hell is going on here?" Mason demanded, seeing Derek and Amber with phones obviously set to record. "Your girlfriend was just explaining how you've been using her to destroy my marriage and steal my company," Derek said, his voice deadly calm. "And your business partner was just confessing to planning his wife's murder for insurance money," Amber added, turning her phone camera toward Mason. The three conspirators faced each other in the luxury apartment, each realizing they'd been played by the others, each holding evidence of the other's crimes, each desperate to save themselves. But Charlotte's masterstroke was still coming. At exactly 9 p.m., every news outlet in Texas received Tyler's evidence packages simultaneously. The first breaking news alert appeared on Austin's Channel 7 within minutes. Breaking Sterling Dynamics. CEO Derek Sterling under investigation for alleged murder plot against pregnant wife. The story exploded across social media as Tyler's evidence packages included video messages from Charlotte explaining the conspiracy in detail. Her marketing background had prepared her perfectly for managing a crisis communications campaign, even when she was the crisis. "My name is Charlotte Hayes Sterling," she said in the video Tyler had helped her record. "3 people have spent months planning my murder while I carried my unborn daughter. Tonight, they're going to destroy each other, and Austin deserves to know the truth." The video included carefully edited clips from Derek's recorded conversations, Mason's financial documents, and Amber's own social media posts about the conspiracy. Charlotte had crafted the narrative expertly, presenting herself as the intelligent victim who'd outsmarted her would-be murderers. By 9:30 p.m., the penthouse was surrounded by police cars, news vans, and FBI agents. The 3 conspirators were trapped in the apartment they'd planned to use as Charlotte's crime scene. Tyler's surveillance equipment captured their final moments of freedom as each tried to cut deals with law enforcement at the other's expense. Derek offered to testify against Mason's financial crimes in exchange for immunity on the murder plot. Mason promised to expose Derek's embezzlement and Amber's extortion schemes. Amber claimed she'd been an undercover informant gathering evidence against both men. But Charlotte had anticipated their betrayal strategies and included evidence of each person's individual crimes in the packages sent to authorities. Derek couldn't claim innocence on the murder plot when Tyler had recorded his detailed planning sessions. Mason couldn't deny financial fraud when his own meticulous records documented every illegal transaction. Amber couldn't pose as an innocent informant when her private messages revealed her eagerness to participate in Charlotte's murder. At 10:15 p.m., all three were arrested on federal charges. Charlotte watched from the surveillance van as Derek was led away in handcuffs, his face pale with the realization that his perfect plan had been turned against him. Amber sobbed as federal agents seized her phones and social media accounts, her influencer empire crashing in real time. Mason maintained his composure until he saw the news reports detailing his financial crimes. Then his carefully constructed facade finally cracked. "It's over," Tyler said, monitoring the police communications. "They're all in federal custody." But Charlotte's victory wasn't complete until she received a call from Jessica with news about the emergency court hearing that had been scheduled for the morning. "Charlotte, the restraining order has been dismissed. All of Derek's assets have been frozen pending the criminal investigation. You're being awarded temporary control of Sterling Dynamics and the Austin mansion." "What about the IPO?" "Canceled. The SEC is investigating the entire company for fraud. But Charlotte, here's the beautiful part. The company's core technology and intellectual property are legitimate. It was just Derek's financial manipulations that were criminal." Charlotte smiled, understanding the full scope of her victory. Derek had built Sterling Dynamics using her marketing genius and legitimate innovations. With Derek gone and the financial crimes exposed, Charlotte could rebuild the company properly. And the life insurance policies? Voided due to fraud. The insurance company is pressing charges against Derek for forging your signature. As Charlotte and Tyler drove back to the hotel she'd been hiding in, Austin's skyline looked different. The city where she'd lost everything was now the place where she'd reclaimed her power. "What happens now?" Tyler asked. Charlotte thought about the daughter growing inside her, the company she'd helped build, and the future she'd nearly lost to three people's greed. "Now we build something better." 6 months later, Charlotte Hayes sat in the boardroom of what had once been Sterling Dynamics, now renamed Phoenix Technologies. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd literally risen from the ashes of Derek's betrayal to build something stronger. The company's IPO had been rescheduled for the following quarter, but this time, Charlotte controlled the narrative. Phoenix Technologies wasn't just another Austin startup. It was a symbol of resilience and female leadership in tech. Charlotte's daughter, Emma Rose Hayes, slept peacefully in a bassinet beside the conference table. Born healthy despite the stress of her mother's ordeal, Emma had become Austin's most photographed baby, featured in articles about Charlotte's remarkable comeback. "The merger with Blackwood Ventures' legitimate assets is complete," Charlotte's new CFO reported. "Mason's criminal enterprises have been liquidated, but his legal investments have been transferred to Phoenix as part of the federal settlement." Charlotte nodded, reviewing the financial reports that showed her company's value had tripled since Derek's arrest. Turns out, removing criminal leadership was excellent for business. Tyler, now 17 and working part-time as Phoenix's cybersecurity consultant while finishing high school, looked up from his laptop. "The documentary team wants to schedule your final interview next week." Charlotte's story had captured national attention. Netflix was producing a documentary called The Pregnant Wife's Revenge, and publishers were competing for rights to her autobiography. But Charlotte was careful to control every aspect of the narrative, having learned the power of strategic communication. "How are Derek and Amber doing?" Charlotte asked, though she already knew the answer from the news reports. Derek had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. Sterling Dynamics' collapse had made him Austin's most notorious failed entrepreneur. He'd tried to sell his story to tabloid magazines from prison, but Charlotte's legal team had blocked most attempts. Amber Collins had received 15 years for conspiracy and fraud. Her social media empire had evaporated overnight, and several of her former sponsors had sued her for misleading advertising. She'd attempted to maintain her influence from prison through smuggled phone videos, but her follower count had dropped from hundreds of thousands to a few dozen trolls. Mason Blackwood had received the harshest sentence, 30 years, for financial crimes spanning multiple states and countries. The FBI had discovered his criminal enterprises extended far beyond the Sterling Dynamics conspiracy. His legitimate businesses had been sold to pay restitution to his victims. "Any word on their appeals?" Charlotte asked Jessica, who now served as Phoenix Technologies' general counsel. All denied. Derek's trying to claim he was mentally incompetent due to stress, but the recordings Tyler made show clear premeditation. Mason's legal team is arguing prosecutorial overreach, but his own meticulous records make that impossible to prove. Charlotte had testified at all 3 trials, her testimony devastating in its calm precision. She'd presented evidence methodically, never allowing emotion to undermine her credibility. The juries had convicted all 3 defendants in less than 4 hours of deliberation each. But Charlotte's real victory wasn't their imprisonment, it was what she'd built from their destruction. Phoenix Technologies now employed 200 people, many of them women who'd faced similar betrayals in their personal or professional lives. Charlotte had created a company culture focused on transparency and empowerment, everything Derek's leadership had lacked. The Hayes Foundation, funded by Charlotte's legal settlements and Phoenix's success, provided legal and financial assistance to women facing domestic abuse or business fraud. Charlotte had personally funded the legal defense of 12 women whose husbands had attempted similar financial crimes. "There's one more thing," Tyler said, his expression serious. "I got accepted to MIT, but they're offering me early admission to their cybersecurity program, full scholarship, plus a research position with the FBI's white-collar crime division." Charlotte felt pride swell in her chest. Tyler's hacking skills had evolved into legitimate cybersecurity expertise, and federal agents had been recruiting him since the Sterling case. "MIT it is," Charlotte said. "Phoenix will sponsor your research and guarantee you a position when you graduate." As the meeting concluded and the boardroom emptied, Charlotte remained at the table with Emma, looking out at Austin's downtown skyline. The city where she'd nearly died had become the place where she'd found her true power. Her phone buzzed with a message from a reporter asking for comment about Derek's latest interview, where he'd claimed Charlotte had manipulated him into his crimes. Charlotte deleted the message without reading it completely. She'd learned that some battles weren't worth fighting. Emma stirred in her bassinet, making the soft sounds that always melted Charlotte's heart. At 6 months old, Emma was already showing signs of her mother's determination and her Uncle Tyler's intelligence. "Your daddy tried to have us killed for money," Charlotte whispered to her daughter. "But look what we built instead." Charlotte's assistant knocked on the boardroom door. "Mrs. Hayes, the car is ready for your Forbes interview." Charlotte Hayes, named to Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for her revolutionary leadership of Phoenix Technologies, gathered her things and prepared for another media appearance. The same magazines that had once called her Derek's perfect wife now featured her on covers as a symbol of entrepreneurial resilience. But as Charlotte carried Emma toward the elevator, she thought about the real lesson of her experience. She hadn't survived Derek's betrayal by being perfect or by playing by rules designed to protect men like him. She'd survived by being smarter, more strategic, and more ruthless than her enemies had expected a pregnant woman to be. And Austin's tech community would never underestimate Charlotte Hayes again. 2 years after Derek Sterling's arrest, Charlotte Hayes stood at the podium of Austin's Convention Center, addressing 3,000 women entrepreneurs at the annual Phoenix Rising Conference. Emma, now a toddler with Charlotte's sharp eyes and Tyler's mischievous smile, played quietly in the VIP section under Tyler's watchful supervision. 2 years ago, I was 7 months pregnant and hiding in a hotel room while my husband planned my murder. Charlotte began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium. Today, Phoenix Technologies is valued at over $2 billion, and we've helped 1,200 women escape similar situations through the Hayes Foundation. The audience erupted in applause, but Charlotte raised her hand for silence. She'd learned that real power lay in what happened after the applause died down. I didn't survive by being a perfect victim or by trusting the system to protect me. I survived by being strategically ruthless when ruthlessness was required. Charlotte's keynote speech had become legendary in business circles, not just for its inspirational message, but for its practical advice about recognizing financial abuse and corporate manipulation. The Harvard Business Review had published her case study as required reading for their executive education programs. After the conference, Charlotte drove through Austin's Hill Country to visit a construction site that represented her most ambitious project yet. The Hayes Center for Women in Crisis was rising on 50 acres Derek had once planned to use for a private golf course. The center would provide legal assistance, financial planning, childcare, and job training for women escaping abusive situations. But Charlotte's innovation was including a technology incubator where women could start their own businesses with mentorship from Phoenix Technologies executives. "It's going to be beautiful," Tyler said, reviewing the architectural plans while Emma toddled between the construction workers who'd all learned to watch for the CEO's daughter. At 19, Tyler was completing dual degrees at MIT in cybersecurity and business, spending summers working with federal agencies to develop new tools for investigating financial crimes. His techniques from the Sterling case were now taught in FBI training programs. "Any word from the documentary team?" Charlotte asked. The Pregnant Wife's Revenge had won 3 Emmy Awards and inspired legislation in 12 states strengthening penalties for financial abuse. Charlotte had used her platform to advocate for legal reforms that would help other women in similar situations. But Charlotte's greatest satisfaction came from simpler victories. Phoenix Technologies now had offices in 6 cities, employing over 1,000 people in high-paying tech jobs. The company's IPO had made Charlotte one of the youngest female billionaires in America, but more importantly, it had proven that ethical leadership was profitable. Derek's latest appeal had been denied the previous month. He would serve his full sentence, and his attempts to profit from his story had been blocked by Charlotte's legal team. Occasionally, tabloid magazines would publish his letters from prison claiming Charlotte had seduced and manipulated him, but public opinion had moved decisively in Charlotte's favor. Amber Collins had been released after serving 3 years, but her attempted comeback as a prison reform influencer had failed spectacularly. Her current job at a Dallas telemarketing company barely covered her legal debts and restitution payments. Mason Blackwood remained in federal prison, his fortune completely liquidated to pay his victims. His former empire had been distributed to various legitimate businesses, many of them now owned by the women he'd attempted to destroy. As Charlotte tucked Emma into bed that night in their Austin home, the same mansion Derek had tried to steal, she reflected on the strangest aspect of her experience. She'd become exactly the woman Derek had claimed she was: ambitious, ruthless, and dangerous to men who underestimated her. The difference was that Charlotte had embraced those qualities as strengths rather than accepting them as flaws. Emma's nursery was decorated with photos of the women Phoenix Technologies and the Hayes Foundation had helped over the past 2 years. Executives who'd escaped financial abuse, entrepreneurs who'd started successful businesses, mothers who'd rebuilt their lives after betrayal. "Your mama was supposed to be a victim," Charlotte whispered to Emma as her daughter drifted off to sleep. But victims don't build empires. Charlotte's phone buzzed with a message from Jessica, now managing partner at Austin's fastest-growing law firm specializing in white-collar crime. New client, situation similar to yours. Husband planning financial fraud while wife is pregnant. Can you meet tomorrow? Charlotte smiled as she typed back, absolutely. Time to teach another woman that being underestimated is a strategic advantage. 2 years ago, Charlotte Hayes had been a pregnant housewife whose husband was planning her murder. Tonight, she was a billionaire CEO whose story had changed laws and saved lives. Derek Sterling had tried to destroy her because he thought pregnancy made her weak. Instead, protecting her daughter had made Charlotte the most dangerous woman in Austin, and she was just getting started. Charlotte's journey from betrayed wife to FBI informant proves that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. What would you have done in Charlotte's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and share it with someone who loves a good revenge tale. Subscribe for more incredible true stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.